Hello students, in this video we will discuss about ATP synthesis. Now I'm sure you have watched the previous video of the respiratory chain in mitochondria, that is the electron transport chain, where I had explained how the electrons are passing from one complex to the other, and therefore that free energy is being utilized for moving the protons from the matrix to the intermembrane space. And therefore ultimately what happens is that there is a electrochemical gradient of the protons, that is huge number of protons are accumulated in the intermembrane space, thus making it the p side, that is the positive side, and very less amount of hydrogen ions or protons are left in the matrix side, therefore it is called as the n side. So this is what happens in the respiratory chain. Now there comes the fifth complex, which is called as complex 5. It is also called as F0F1 particle, or it is also called as the ATP synthase. This is the complex where ATP is synthesized. Now in the respiratory chain till complex 4, the main focus of these complexes was to accumulate the proton gradient across the membrane, so that this energy can be utilized to produce ATP. Now how this is done? As the electron, in the electron transport chain, as the electron moves from one complex to the other, they release free energy. This free energy is utilized to move protons from the matrix to the inner membrane space. This is done by complex 1, complex 3 and complex 4, through which protons will pass from the n side to the p side. This will ultimately create a proton gradient. Now this proton gradient is also called as the proton motive force. Now ultimately this force will be utilized to synthesize ATP. Now as they are producing this electrochemical gradient across the membrane, now while explaining about the structure of the mitochondria, I had mentioned that the outer membrane is comparatively more permeable than the inner membrane. The inner membrane is highly impermeable and it does not allow any leakage of anything, even the small protons. Therefore, the protons never leak back. That means they will never come back from the inner membrane to the intermembrane space to the matrix without any channel. So therefore, the proton motive force is very strong. That's this proton gradient, electrochemical proton gradient, is maintained very effectively by the inner membrane, as it does not permit the entry or exit of any ion other than from the channels. If there are channels, then that will allow, but the channels usually allow only in one direction, so there is no leakage from the inner membrane, as it is highly impermeable. Now what is proton motive force? The energy present in both compartments, here both compartments means the matrix and the intermembrane space, of the proton electrochemical gradient can be combined and expressed as the proton motive force. So this energy is called as the proton motive force, which will further help in the ATP synthesis. Now this complex 5. This complex 5, or the F0F1 particle, or the ATP synthase, this helps in the phosphorylation of the ADP into ATP. Now what is phosphorylation? Phosphorylation means addition of one phosphate group to the ADP. What is the full form of ADP? Adenosine diphosphate. That means it is having two phosphate group attached with adenosine. Now in adenosine triphosphate, it is having 3 phosphate group. That means if we add one phosphate group to the adenosine diphosphate, it will become adenosine triphosphate. This is what happens in the ATP synthase. This is called as the phosphorylation of ADP, that is adding one phosphate group to the ADP. This is the function that what the complex 5 does. This large enzyme complex of the inner mitochondrial membrane catalyzes the formation of ATP from ADP and PI, that is inorganic phosphate, accompanied by the flow of protons, hydrogen ion, from the P side, that is intermembrane space, to the N side, matrix of the membrane. So what happens is that the protons, here you can see from complex 1, 3 and 4, the protons are moving from the matrix side to the intermembrane side, but in case of complex 5, this proton will move back to the matrix side and it will produce ATP from ADP and PI. This is what the complex 5 does, or the ATP synthase does. Now let us discuss the structure of the ATP synthase. Structure of ATP synthase. Now this particular structure of ATP synthase, this is highly conserved. Highly conserved means this ATP synthase is present in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Now mitochondria is present in the animal world. Now in the animal world you will find that the structure of this ATP synthase remains the same. That is, there is very little change in this structure from animal to animal. Therefore it is called as highly conserved structure. So the structure of ATP synthase is highly conserved, and it has got two functional domains, which is called as F0 and F1. These are the two functional domains of the ATP synthase. Now, if this is the structure of ATP synthase, this is the inner mitochondrial membrane on which the ATP synthase is sitting. This is the intermembrane side, that is the P side, having huge amount of proton concentration because of the respiratory chain, that is the electron transport chain. And this is the matrix side, having very less amount of proton concentration. Now, this entire structure of ATP synthase can be divided into two functional domains. One is F0, this part, and the F1 part, which is this part. So it is divided into two functional domains, F0 particle and F1 particle. The F0 particle is the integral membrane protein. That means it will be present in the membrane. It is present inside the membrane, this part. And the F1 part is the peripheral membrane protein. It is not embedded inside the protein, but it is attached with the part which is embedded inside the membrane. So this is the peripheral membrane protein. Now the F0 particle, it has got three subunits of three different types, A, B and C. There is 1A, so A, B2 because there are 2B, and C is approximately 10 to 14 subunits. So the three subunits are A, B and C of three different types. Okay, only 1A is present, B, 2B is present, and C almost 10 to 14 subunits. Then comes the F1 particle. It has got 9 subunits of 5 different types. Alpha 3, 1, 2, 3, beta 3, 1, 2, 3. Then gamma, this one is the gamma, the red one. Then delta, this one, and epsilon, this one. So this includes the F1 particle having 9 subunits of 5 different types. Now I will discuss a little bit about the function of the parts, but I will discuss only the major ones. First I'll start with this one, F0. Why it is called as the F0 particle? It is called as the F0 particle because the 0, actually it's not 0, this is O. O comes from oligomycin sensitivity. Now this particle, or the F0 particle, it cannot function properly in the presence of oligomycin. On the presence of oligomycin in this particular area will hamper with F0 functioning, and therefore it is oligomycin sensitive, hence the name comes from there. Then the A subunit is actually a proton channel. I already told you that what this complex 5 does is it will bring proton back to the matrix from the intermembrane space. So this proton actually passes from this A subunit. Then this C subunits, there are almost 10 to 14 subunits within this. This is called as the C ring, and it rotates as protons are passed from the A proton channel. In the the F1 complex, we have this beta. Beta subunit is the most important subunit in this part, because beta subunits are those subunits that has got catalytic site. That means this is the part in which ATP synthesis will take place. So this B subunit is very important. Then this gamma subunit. The gamma subunit is the subunit which is attached to epsilon, which is again attached to the C ring. This is completely attached with the C ring, and it is present, it penetrates inside this F1 complex. Now the F1 complex having this alpha and beta subunit, this looks like an orange. I think you all have seen how an orange look like. I'm sure you have eaten orange. Now when you peel an orange and you take one section out of it, it looks like that. This parts looks like the sections of an orange. So you can imagine it like that. And within orange also you have seen that there is a central part which is empty. Now in that central part this gamma will enter. Now this gamma is attached to the C ring. Now I just told you that the C ring rotates. So when the C ring rotates, since the gamma is attached to the C ring, this gamma also rotates. Therefore the F0 particle, this portion rotates, but the F1 particle having this alpha and beta subunit, this part will not rotate. This is stationary part, and this part is the rotatory part in the structure of the ATP synthase. In most of the books you will find that this picture is inverted. Now I have drawn it in this way because since first we were reading this in this particular pattern where the outer membrane was, I had drawn in the upper side. So I have maintained this particular thing. Therefore I have made the intermembrane space on towards the upward side. But in most of the books you will find that they have shown the matrix side in the upward and this intermembrane space in the low side. That's why in most of the books you will find this in the inverted form. So please do not get confused. So now, since I have already discussed about the structure of this ATP synthase, now I will discuss about the function of this ATP synthase. How does this functions and how does it produce ATP? First I will discuss about the F1 part, and then I'll come to the F0 part. Now in the F1 part, this part I told you that it looks like an orange having a central shaft which is coming through the middle, which is attached to the C ring. Now if I cut a cross section through this F1 particle, then it will look like this. If I cut a cross section through this, it will look like this. So now here you can see that the F1 has got 3 active catalytic site, that is the beta subunit, and the alpha subunit do not participate in this reaction. So I have just written alpha out here. And gamma subunit is highly asymmetrical. Different phases of gamma interact with different beta subunit, causing conformational change L, O and T. Now I will explain this. Now first you look at this particular diagram. This is the cross section through the F1 particle. Now through the cross section you can see in the center this is the gamma shaft which is coming from the, which is attached to the F0, and it is coming through the center. There are 3 alpha subunits which does not take part in the ATP synthesis, and there are 3 beta subunits which takes part in the synthesis of ATP. Now this beta subunit can be present in the open conformation or open state, or it can be present in the loose conformation, loose state, or in the tight conformation or tight state. In the open conformation, the beta subunit is empty. Why it is empty? It is empty because it was previously having newly ATP formed and it has been released, and here new ADP and phosphate will come and bind. So therefore it is open to receive ADP and phosphate. This is in the loose conformation where it has already accepted the ADP and the phosphate, but it is in loose conformation. That means now this ADP and PI cannot come out of this beta subunit until and unless it has been changed into ATP. In the tight conformation, the space within the beta becomes very less, and therefore the ADP and PI comes very, very close to each other. Therefore a bond will be formed and it will be converted into ATP in a very tight conformation. Therefore it is called as tight state. It is also called as T, O and L. T for tight state, O for open state, and L for loose state. So this is how the cross section of a F1 particle will look like at one particular point of time. Now this conformation changes from O to L to T one after the other. So here we can say that the beta subunit can bind the ADP and PI and synthesize ATP. By phosphorylation, ATP is released into the matrix. At any given moment, the beta subunit can exist in one of the three states. The T state, that is the tight state, in which catalysis takes place here. The ADP and PI are brought close so that they can combine to form ATP. In the open state, this is the release state in which newly synthesized ATP will be released. And in the loose state, where there is a binding, ADP and PI binds, actually they bind in the open state and gets attached loosely to the beta subunit, and therefore they cannot just come out of it until and unless they have transformed into ATP. Now we will discuss exactly how the cycle takes place. Now suppose at one particular point of time, this one is in the tight state, there is a ATP formed. This one is the O state, that is in the empty state where it can take up new ADP and PI, and this one is in the loose state having ADP and PI bound loosely to it. Then there will be 120-degree rotation in a counterclockwise manner. This is the gamma subunit. Okay, I have not mentioned. This one is the gamma subunit. This is alpha, alpha, alpha. This one is beta, beta, beta. Same goes for these. Okay, so 120-degree rotation in a counterclockwise manner of the gamma complex, not the complex, subunit. When the gamma subunit rotates 120 degree, then this one, which was previously in the L conformation, will change into T conformation or the T state. Now as soon as this L changes into T, this will become tight, and therefore the ADP and PI will come very close to each other, and therefore they will change quickly into ATP. Now this tight conformation has got a very high affinity for ATP, and therefore the ATP will be stuck inside the tight conformation. Now the open state, which was open, this one will take up new, since it was open, it will take up new ADP and PI, and therefore it will change into the loose state. This one, which was previously in the T state, which was having a tightly bound ATP, as soon as this gamma rotates, it will again become open, and therefore it will release the ATP out, and it will change into the open state, and now it can take up new ADP and PI. So as soon as new ADP and PI are added, one ATP is released with every 120-degree rotation of the gamma subunit or gamma shaft. Here also same thing will happen. This one was in the T state. As soon as this gamma will rotate 120-degree anti-clockwise, here counterclockwise, this T state will change into open state as it will release the ATP. The loose state will now become the tight state, and the ATP is formed, and the open state will become loose state as it is taking up new ADP and PI in a loose conformation. And again, as the gamma subunit is rotating 120 degree, again the same thing will be repeated. So this is how, as the gamma subunit rotates, the function of the beta subunit changes. Not function, I'll say the conformation. The conformation change of the beta subunit takes place. When it is facing towards this, it will become T state. So we can say that whenever the gamma subunit faces the one particular beta subunit, it changes into tight conformation. This is called as the binding change mechanism, because as the gamma changes its binding with a different beta subunit, the beta subunit keeps on changing its conformation, and therefore it keeps on changing its function accordingly. Now the rotation of gamma subunit allows the interconversion of the beta subunit from O to L to T to O, that is from one state to another. Two catalytic sites alternate in activity. So you can say that at one particular time, two catalytic sites are active and are in alternative form. You will never find both of them or two of them are having the same state. No, it will never happen. ATP cannot be released from one site unless ADP and PI are bound to the other. So therefore, until and unless a new one is attached, new ADP and PI are attaching to one open state and changing into L state, till that time no ATP will be released from the T site. So this occurs very much simultaneously. So here we can say that as ADP and PI is binding, it will form the loose state. Then there will be a conformational change in the beta because of the rotation of the gamma, and ATP will be tightly bound, having high affinity for ATP. This is the T state, and again there will be a conformational change in the beta. Again, this is due to the rotation of the gamma shaft or the gamma subunit. And finally, the ATP will be released in the O conformation, because O conformation has got very low affinity for the ATP. And finally, thus the ATP will be released inside the matrix. So this is how the F1 complex works. Now we will discuss how the F0 is functioning. Now the function of this F0 complex. F0 complex is actually this part, which is attached to this gamma subunit, which was again attached to this stationary alpha and beta complexes. So this one is this part. Now ATP is synthesized by rotational catalysis, in which one part of the ATP synthase rotates relative to the other part. Which part is rotating? This part is rotating, this one. This C part is rotating along with this gamma subunit, and the relatively stagnant part or the stationary part is this one, the F1 part, having the alpha and the beta subunits. Rotation of the F0 particle is driven by the movement of proton through F0 from P side to N side. Now how does this rotation occur? This rotation occurs due to the movement of the protons. From where? Previously, by all the four complexes in the electron transport chain, protons were used to be passed from the matrix to the intermembrane space. But here in the F0 complex, that is in the complex 5, what will happen? The opposite thing will happen. The protons will be passed from the P side to the N side, that means it will be reverted back from the intermembrane side to the matrix side. Now this particular part has got mainly the A subunit and the C subunit. First we'll talk about the A subunit. A subunit is actually, I told you, it is a proton channel. It consists of two hydrophilic half channel. One opens to matrix and other to the intermembrane space. There are two half channels in it. One which is opening towards the intermembrane space and this one which is opening towards the matrix side. This one opening to the intermembrane space, this one opening to the matrix side, which is attached to the C ring. Now in the green color I have shown this. This one is the aspartic acid residue. That means all the C rings, they have got an aspartic acid. Aspartic acid is a negatively charged molecule. Now, so they easily attract the hydrogen ion or the protons, because protons are positively charged. So there will be attraction between them. So now what will happen, since there is a huge concentration, that is the proton motive force, since there is huge amount of proton motive force in the intermembrane space as compared to the matrix, huge electrochemical gradient, therefore this hydrogen ion will easily enter inside the half channel of the A subunit towards the intermembrane space. Now as the hydrogen ion is entering, it will soon pass from here to the next C subunit, which is having aspartic acid residue, which is negatively charged. So obviously there will be an attraction to the positive charge and negative charge. Then it will pass on to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and therefore it will move, and finally it will reach to the other half channel, which has an open link towards the matrix. Now you already know that within the matrix the concentration of protons is very, very, very low. So therefore, since it is having very less amount of proton concentration, so it will easily come back to the matrix. But in the whole process, what's happening? In the whole process, while passing this proton from the inner membrane space to the matrix, this whole C ring will rotate. How much will it rotate? It will rotate by 30 degrees. For one hydrogen molecule, for hydrogen ion, that is for one proton, the rotation of C ring will be 30 degrees. So the mechanism of proton movement, and proton will enter the half channel of A subunit facing the intermembrane space, and it will bind to the aspartate residue of the C subunit. The entire C ring then rotates until the C subunit with aspartic acid enters the half channel that faces the proton pore environment of the matrix. The H plus is then released into the matrix of the mitochondria. Okay, so this is how the C ring rotates as the hydrogen ions are passed from the intermembrane space to the matrix. Now the movement of proton rotates the C ring, which rotates the attached gamma and epsilon stalk. The rotation of gamma stalk stimulates ATP synthesis by binding change mechanism. You have just seen about this binding change mechanism, where the rotation of stalk, was actually helping in the binding change mechanism. This was the binding change mechanism, which is helped by the rotation of the gamma stalk, which was helped by the rotation of the C ring, because the gamma is attached to the C ring. Okay, so we can say that as the protons from the intermembrane space enter the half channel of the A, the hydrogen ion will bind to the aspartic acid, I have shown into this one in the green, residue of adjacent C subunit, and so on. Conformational change in the C subunit rotates 30 degree counterclockwise. Release of protons to matrix. Finally, it will be released to the matrix. Now the C ring returns into the original conformation after it has rotated the total 360 degree, and then again the cycle will be repeated. But at one time only one proton will be transferred from the intermembrane space to the matrix. So here we can say that 4 proton movement will cause 120 degree rotation. Why? Because one is moving 30 degrees, so 4 will move 120 degree. Now the rotation of C ring will bring about the rotation of the gamma subunit, since it is attached to gamma, so it will also rotate by 120 degree, and therefore finally this rotation will help in the release of the one newly formed ATP, because 120 degree rotation releases 1 ATP. Then, so we can say that 12 hydrogen ion or 12 proton will cause 360-degree rotation of the C ring and also of the gamma, and then release of 3 ATP will take place. So finally we can say that the electrical energy that is stored in the hydrogen gradient, that is the electrical energy that is stored in the proton gradient or the electrochemical proton gradient, changes into mechanical energy of rotation. Rotating of what? Rotation of the C subunit and therefore the gamma subunit, which is attached to the epsilon, and this mechanical energy will be changed into chemical energy to form ATP. So this is how ATP is synthesized in the mitochondria. Now if you have any doubt, you can ask me.